Hey everyone, I'm Shu. Welcome back to 30 Plus today. I want to start with a photograph that many of us have probably seen somewhere online. It's raining. A woman stands beneath an umbrella, and at her feet, a man is on his knees, crying, begging, pleading. The comments under the photo split into two familiar camps. One side says, "No man with self-respect would do that." The other says, "He must have done something terrible." Two sides, two verdicts. Case closed. Nobody asks anything beyond that. But I couldn't stop thinking about a different question. Not whether he was right or wrong, but this. What does a person have to fear losing? To willingly fall to their knees in front of someone else? And if we're being completely honest, why does a picture like that make so many of us uncomfortable? Why does it hit somewhere deeper than we'd like to admit? I don't think this image went viral because of cheating, or because it's dramatic. I think it spread because it reflects something almost all of us have felt at least once in our lives: the fear of being left behind. It doesn't always look like kneeling in the rain. Sometimes it's a text message sent at 2 a.m. that you already know won't get a reply. Sometimes it's saying, "I'll change," even though a part of you isn't sure you can. Sometimes it's grabbing someone's hand as they're walking away, even when you can already see in their eyes that they've emotionally left. We see the man on his knees, but what stops us from scrolling is something else. Somewhere in our memories, or maybe somewhere in our present lives. We've been him, or we've been the person holding the umbrella, and most of us don't want to admit that. Let me tell you a true story. I once knew a woman. Let's call her T. Her husband cheated on her. Not once. Not twice. Many times. The first time, she forgave him. The second time, she forgave him. The third time, she forgave him again. Then one day, he decided to leave for good. And what shocked everyone was this. The person who ended up on their knees wasn't the husband. It was T. People said, "She must love him so much." But I don't think that explains everything, because there's a question nobody ever asked her. Were you trying to hold on to him? Or were you trying to hold on to something else? 15 years of your life, 3 children, a home, an identity, a wife, a mother, a woman who had spent years sacrificing, enduring, and fighting to keep her family together when her husband walked out the door. It wasn't just a man leaving. An entire world she had built her life around began to collapse. Sometimes we're not afraid of losing the person. We're afraid of losing the life we've built around that person. And from the outside, those two fears look exactly the same. But they're not. There's something fascinating about the human brain. It doesn't always distinguish between losing someone important and losing a sense of safety. To our nervous system, abandonment can feel like a survival threat. There's one thing I watched for the longest time, but could never quite wrap my head around until I started reading more about psychology. Why do some people keep repeating the exact same relationship patterns, falling for the same type of person, even when they know that type only brings pain? Getting hurt over and over, following the exact same script, then starting all over again with someone new, only for the story to play out identically. In psychology, there's a concept called compulsion to repeat, an unconscious tendency to relive familiar patterns, even when they cause suffering. It sounds like self-sabotage, but it's actually not. Think of it this way. If you grew up in a family where love always came with control, you learned that's just how love works. If you grew up in an environment where you had to suffer first, just to get noticed, you learned that pain is the price of intimacy. And as an adult, it's not that you want to recreate those toxic dynamics. It's just that you don't know any other way. The human brain naturally craves what's familiar, even when that familiarity hurts, because at least it's predictable. At least you know where you stand. Certainty, even certain misery, feels safer than uncertainty. Maybe it's the same for the man in that photo. It's not that he doesn't know who he's kneeling before. It's just that, to him, this woman is the last remaining shred of safety. And losing that feeling is far more terrifying than losing his dignity. But what really caught my attention wasn't the person kneeling. It was the person standing. We often assume that the one standing is the one with the power, the strong one, the winner of an argument that has dragged on for years. But are we sure about that? What is she thinking in that exact moment? Maybe she's just exhausted. Maybe she has forgiven him so many times that she has nothing left to give. Maybe she's standing there not because she's strong, but because she's completely numb. And that numbness is scarcer and more terrifying than the pain itself. But there's another possibility, one that few dare to say out loud. That in that moment, a part of her feels a sense of power. It might sound harsh, but it's deeply human. If you've been looked down on for years, if you've been betrayed time and time again, if you've always felt like the less important one in that relationship, and then one day, the very person who broke you falls to their knees at your feet, a tiny voice somewhere deep inside will whisper, "Finally, you see my worth. Finally, I'm the one in control." That doesn't make her a bad person. It just shows that when pain drags on long enough, it creates strange forms of power. And sometimes, we become addicted to that feeling without even realizing it. And this is probably what haunts me the most. The tragedy of that photo isn't that one person is kneeling and the other is standing. The tragedy is that both are being driven by things deep inside them, things they've probably never even put into words. One is terrified of losing their last anchor. The other is terrified of getting hurt one more time, and has learned to protect themselves with distance. One looks at the past and wants to go back. The other looks at the past and knows they can't. In that moment, neither is choosing from a place of freedom. Both are simply reacting to their wounds. And that, in a way, is both heartbreaking and beautifully human. When it's all said and done, the question I want to ask isn't about the man in that photo. It's about us. In this life, what is each of us holding on to so tightly? A person? A version of ourselves that we've invested our entire youth into? Or a sense of security? Even a false one, just to avoid facing the emptiness of letting go? Because sometimes the moment a person drops to their knees isn't when they are at their weakest. It's when they are fighting the most desperate battle with a fear they aren't even ready to look in the eye. They aren't kneeling before the other person. They are kneeling before the thought of living in a world where that person is gone. I'm Shu. Thank you for sitting with 30 Plus. If this photo touched you in any way, please leave a comment. I want to know, what do you see in it? And if you are holding on to something you haven't found the courage to let go of yet, I hope this episode gave you a space to just sit with that question for a while. Goodbye for now. See you in the next episode.